That's the struggle. All right. Well, you're going to be my guest today, so I'll do my intro and we'll bring you on. I mean, listen, man, you know how to do this. This is light work for you down in Miami. You guys are all bosses down there. So,
I don't think so, but let's see. That's
all right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get it going. All right, guys, I want to thank you for tuning in to today's Security Guard Spotlight. Really excited to be doing this, to be highlighting other security guards and people working in the security industry. Guys, listen, if you haven't figured out by now, my channel is specifically set up to train, motivate, and educate new entry guards that are coming into security. Our goal here is to change the narrative around security and security as an industry, because ultimately, if we can change that narrative, we can all make more money, we can all be more successful, and we can also all be a lot more safe. So by talking to different guards from different areas and having them share their experience, this is the quickest way for all of you new guards, and I'm including myself in that as well, to learn. And guys, listen, education is the gap between being safe, being unsafe, and really changing that narrative around what we're doing. So today we're super happy to highlight the security guard from way down south, Rick Ross's area of the woods, right? Mr. Mike Alverez. Mike, how are you?
Great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Listen,
Awesome.
I'm assuming kind of new to this whole YouTube thing, but I'm following your videos. I like your energy. I like how you're coming in right off the bat. I love the cigar. I got into cigars for the first time in my life ever about a year ago. My brother-in-law, huge into cigars and whiskey. So, we have a brotherhood here far outside of security. What's the deal with the cigar?
Oh man, my entire family, we're from Cuba. I was born here, but my parents are from Cuba. The whole generation. My dad's side of the family owned tobacco plantations in Cuba back in the days. So, I guess it's something that transcended through through tradition, and everybody smokes cigars. So,
Yeah. I went to Miami for the first time, like probably around 2004, and I had no idea how, and this sounds crazy now being a lot older, 20 years ago or whatever, but I had no idea how strong the Cuban influence is down there. And even at, on the street corners, there's people that are hand rolling cigars and all of the little Havana, type restaurants and things like that. So how important to you, and in terms of what you're doing with your business, how important is your Cuban heritage?
Very, very. There's a lot of Cuban in Miami, man. So everywhere you go, they kind of always lean towards you, because you have a lot to share with them. The Cubans are usually very closed off for some reason, and unfortunately, they choose to hang around their own groups. It's kind of they just gravitate towards them. So
yeah, it's a huge.
I've been trying to get everybody to change that, though. So I'm like, hey, you guys got to explore, man. You guys got to get out of the box.
Yeah. Well, give me your background with security or law enforcement. How'd you get into this?
Well, I mean, I grew up in the industry. My parents owned the company for 30 plus years. Unfortunately, when my mom passed away and my dad retired, they pretty much, my dad gave me an ultimatum. He's like, either you go do what you want to do, or this is what's left for you. You know what I'm saying? And I thought about it for a couple of months. I'm like, why not, man? I grew up in the industry and I know everything there is to know about it down here. And, I gave in.
Yeah. How long have you been doing security right now, as an officer yourself?
Man, 15 plus years.
Did you start out in security? Did you have any law enforcement background, military, anything?
Well, I dabbled around in a lot of different things. But yeah, I do have a little bit of a background. I got my own little pedigree. Mainly doing PSD overseas and stuff like that. And, you know, when I came back from doing that, that's when my dad told me, hey, take over this. And I was like, you know, why not?
So Mike, down in Florida, I mean, I'm assuming that things are, you know, probably night and day different from what we're doing up here in Oregon. You know, I think that I've said this in a couple other videos. You know, the politics of the area that you're in really dictates what you can and what you can't do as a security guard. Here in Oregon, it's an extremely liberal state. It's very anti 2A for the most part. But at the same time, you know, we're suffering from this huge defund the police movement, where our police here in Portland have pretty much just thrown their hands up in the air. So response times, even to answering 911 calls, are over 30 minutes. Actually coming out to the call can reach over an hour. So, you know, if you're dealing with something where it's truly an emergency, I mean, you can imagine how dangerous and scary that situation is here in the area. So down in Florida, you know, with you guys being more, I would say, police centered and clearly being more gun friendly in terms of people carrying to protect themselves, what's the security industry like there in Florida?
Well, it definitely has its up and downs. There was a time a few months back when the whole movement to defund the police happened, that a lot of I could see it in their face. A lot of my friends that are currently law enforcement officers, they were like, dude, if this gets down here, and you could feel it. You could feel it creeping down here. Because believe it or not, even though we are in a, you know, somewhat of a 2A state, you know, and we have a lot of conservatives down here and all that stuff, there's still a lot of people that lean towards the, you know, defund the police, a lot of gang activity, you know, all kinds of stuff. So most of the law enforcement that I used to know, that I know, they were like, you know, I'm done with it, man. They wanted to quit too, but, you know, some of them stayed, some of them moved to other states. But it got pretty hairy for a little bit.
Yeah. Last year was a really rough time with the mask mandates and a lot of the issues that came up with COVID last year. Did you see any issues in terms of what you were doing with security?
Yeah, well, I mean, everywhere we went, everybody was panicking, because there's a lot of back and forth with the whole mask thing. So a lot of people decided not to wear the mask. Some did. My main struggle with that was my guys. They, you know, even though a client required them to wear a mask, they were like, no, I'm not doing that. It's against my constitution and all that. So I'm like, bro, listen, I got it. I get it. But, you know, we got to, you know, for this moment, we have to people please. You know what I'm saying? We got to respect their opinions and all that stuff. And I had a lot of pushback from my guys.
You know, one of the things, Mike, that I've noticed, I went through your channel, I watched all your videos, you know, you do a really good job of, I think like one of the best things about your channel that I'm seeing right now is that you seem to be teaching from like an employer's point of view. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that a lot of times, like, I don't know specifically what you're doing in terms of the company that you're working for, if you're owning the company, if you're managing, I would assume that you're the owner of the company. But for a lot of companies, especially like these big box name organizations, you know, that
the corporate companies,
those corporate security companies, people rarely, if ever, have any FaceTime with the owner of the company. So I think it's really cool that you're sitting down and you're talking about these things. I've seen your video on being polite and having professionalism, talking about the ultimate sacrifice. Are you willing to, you know, accept the call to potentially be violent if we have to? You know, I saw your video on fraternization. I'm actually looking to do one of those myself. How did you handle that tough situation with mask mandates and vaccinations, being an owner of a company? And obviously, like, you need people in order for you to make money. You need people to work, you need people to go out there and fill those contracts. But at the same time, like, everything is so political. How were you able to kind of play that middle role and not lose people and still be able to keep your company afloat?
Well, doing exactly that, man. Staying in the middle ground. You know, I try to like cater to both sides. As long as I don't see that it's infringing on anybody's rights, or I'm like, listen, so I've given up clients for the simple fact that they want security, they want this, they want that, but they really don't need it. And at the end of the day, they treat my guys, or they treat me even, with a certain level of of disgrace. You know what I'm saying? So my guys come first. That's how I see it. Because like you said, I not only do I do what I do, and I try to teach my guys, I'm owner operator, so I'm out here with them, I'm here working with them. I sweat, bleed, and everything with them. You know what I'm saying? So I work, me, on a slow week, I work 84 hours a week.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? So the guys see that, and that's one of the things that kind of motivates them to keep coming back. And and they see that I fight for them when there's a client, because most companies, especially since you mentioned the big box companies, they're quick to fire people. They don't get both sides of the story. So I'm gonna give you a perfect example. I had one of my guys working a condominium in down in Doral, which is a highly liberal area, but we happen to be working armed there, and everybody's always like, oh, he had his hand on his gun and all this stuff. I'm like, show me proof. There's cameras all over the place. Show me the video. You know what I'm saying? I want to know if it's true or not. If it's true, I'll get rid of him. If it's not, then you're gonna have to deal with us. So
absolutely. You just brought up the condominium, which was something that you were talking about in your fraternization video. That's something that I really want to hit on, because I think that guards or officers not understanding the line between being at work and being around people versus being at work and being amongst people, right? And you were talking about that in that fraternization video. Kind of what's your take on things like that? People getting too familiar, getting too friendly, getting too comfortable.
Man, like I say, I work most of the posts myself. I've done executive protection for some of my clients, some of my higher end clients and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, you have to realize that they are your client. You're not there to be their friend. You know what I'm saying? You're there for a reason. And, the last thing you want to do, is get too comfortable, man, because with that comfort comes complacency. And that could lead to a lot of problems.
Yeah. I have a friend here that's a security guard. He's been working for, 25 years in the industry. His last gig was working for executive protection for a very famous Portland basketball player. If anybody is familiar with Portland basketball, they immediately know who I'm talking about. And this officer was saying that when he would hire people to work alongside him in executive protection, one of the things that this professional basketball player was adamant of was, when I'm around my family or around my friends, or if we're at a party or if we're at any sort of function, I need you guys to be on point. Like, if me and my friends are laughing and joking and talking about music or playing video games, like, I don't want any of you guys involved in that. Like, your job is not to be talking about the music or looking at the women or trying to get phone numbers. You know what I mean? And you think that would go without saying, but this officer was telling me, like, you would be surprised how many people would find themselves just losing a great opportunity, a great job, and a lot of money because they couldn't not try and get a girl's phone number at a house party. Have you seen those kind of things in your situation? Like, what are some of the things that you can just kind of put on the table that you've seen people do they shouldn't
all the time? Well, talking about condominiums, I'm not going to mention names or anything like that, but I had one of my guys that was getting involved with a married woman in the condominium. You know what I'm saying? I got wind of it one day when I showed up like at 3:00 in the morning, and I looked for him all over the place. I'm like, where's he at? Where's he at? Where's he at? So I couldn't find him. And, so I'm walking down the hall, I had to wait actually because I didn't have the key fob to get inside the building. By luck, somebody was coming from a nightclub or whatever. They had a night out, and they were coming in. Like, hey, Mike, how are you? And they all know me, so I'm like, hey, man, I'm trying to get in. So they let me in, and I'm walking down the hallway, and here comes Buddy, out of an apartment. I'm like, what are you doing in there, man? I've been calling you for like 30 minutes. He's like, oh, and the girl was at the door like all freaked out. I'm like, listen, man, you're no longer working at this site. I don't want to fire you.
Yeah, I
know it's tempting, bro, and it's tempting because she was a good looking woman, you know what I'm saying? But you gotta, it's your job, bro. You can't, what's that proverbial term that everybody uses, that you shouldn't do that where you eat?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I've been very open about the fact that this has been an issue that has cost me a lot of money and it's cost me a lot of opportunity. I had an affair at work in 2007, and that situation that happened in 2007 has literally come up in almost every job interview that I've had since. When I applied for the sheriff's department here in Oregon, they did an extensive background check, and one of the questions they asked was, have you ever been terminated? And I said, yeah. And they asked me, well, why were you terminated? Well, here's the situation. I had an affair, blah, 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 blah. And I literally be very transparent, be very upfront and tell them what happened. But that's not where it stopped. So in the extensive background interview, I had to explain the entire aspect of how the affair led to me being terminated. Like, they wanted to hear every aspect of it. And that was highly uncomfortable. I mean, we're talking about, 14, 15 years ago, and, I think that when you're in the moment and you're making those decisions, you don't even think that this is something that's going to follow me 15, 20 years down the road and have an impact on whether or not I get hired somewhere. So yeah, man, it's hard to get across to young officers. I feel crazy saying that, like, I don't feel old, but being 43, I'm the old guy in the crew, and you see situations happening at work and you're like, man, you're walking right into this trap. But it's hard to get people to agree with that, and it seems like everybody wants to learn the hard way,
Yeah, you saw me mention that in the video.
I did. That's why I threw that in there. Hey, I want to ask you one more question. When you talk about being capable of violence, I didn't get all the way through the video. I feel like I know what you're talking about, but in your own words, when you talk about being capable of violence, what are you talking about with that?
Well, man, you got to have that warrior mindset, man. Unfortunately, there's too many guards that go to work. And this is across the board, whether if they're military, law enforcement, or security, retired law enforcement that turn to security or whatever. A lot of them, man, after a certain point, for some reason, they just become complacent. And, they tend to think that nothing's ever going to happen. And that's a huge issue. They get complacent, and that would be their last day, that they react to something, or, that's why I'm always preaching being proactive, because the fact is that if you're reacting to a threat, chances are you're going to be by yourself. We already know that, most of us work by ourselves, and, you're behind the power curve, man. So you have to be proactive. You have to have that warrior mindset, and you have to be capable of I wouldn't want to call it capable of violence. But at least have in your mind that at the end of the day, you're the one going home to your family, to your kids, and that other guy's not, you know what I'm saying? So you can't freeze up in a situation like that. I've been in many, many situations, over an extended period of time in this industry, whether overseas or here. And, if you're not on it, man, you can end up hurt. I've seen many of my friends go that way, unfortunately. So I'm always preaching that.
Yeah, I know that Doug, in the last spotlight that I did, one of our instructors here in Oregon, he was talking about how, he just does not see people taking this serious. And a lot of people look at it like it's a quick paycheck, a very easy job for the most part, observe and report. But you truly are, when you're in those situations, you're literally the only quote unquote law enforcement officer. And I know that's not what we are, but
Yeah.
that's how we're viewed, especially in a situation where somebody's wanting to do
Yeah.
harm. So, yeah, all good stuff, man. Listen, where can people find you? Where can they follow you? How can they get in touch with you?
Well, they can go to my YouTube, Mike Alverez, or they can go and send me an email at mike@miamiguardcrimeprevention.com. That's my email. I'm like very transparent with my information, man. Like I said, I own a company, so I'm always looking for new hires and new talent out there, guys that I can train, not guys that are already trained. You know what I'm saying? Because those guys tend to sometimes make a lot of mistakes. So I rather have some guys that I can mold and throw out there and see what comes of them. You know what I'm saying? So
Good deal. Well, Mike Alvarez, listen, man, I truly appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking to us, sharing your knowledge, your perspective. And guys, listen, go follow his channel. As always, like, share, and subscribe. Today, that's going to be to Mike Alvarez's channel. And if you're getting any value or learning anything from the content that we're uploading, please, give your boy a like, a share, a subscribe as well. And let's try and continue to build this community. The more we can share, the more we can teach and educate. And again, guys, at the end of the day, it's all about all of us making more money. So, Mike, truly appreciate it, brother. You're safe out there.
One of these days,
I'm going to bring a wife down to Miami. Now I know I got a place to stay, right? Hopefully.
Yes, sir. And stogies.
Outstanding. All right, man. You have a good day.
All right, brother. You too. Be safe.
Awesome.